Okay, so I want to go over the answers to the review here just so that you have them, especially since I'm not going to see you today. And so here's my answer to number 5 here. This on the test is going to be no calculator, so you should be able to add, subtract, multiply, do a square root without a calculator. And so they gave them an IJ form, so I would just keep them in IJ form. But remember that you can do component form as well. So like you could do 4 negative 3 or 4i minus 3j. So it's up to you. And so remember, when you subtract everything. When you multiply, I always multiply a by 4, multiply b by 5, and then add them or subtract them. So this is my answer for adding, and this is my answer for subtracting. And component form, magnitude is the length, and it's just the square root of a squared plus b squared, and leave it as exact. Simplify if it's a perfect square, right? Or if you can take a perfect square out of it. 49, you didn't have to do 50 here, but unit vector, remember to find the unit vector, you just take and you put each part of the vector over the magnitude. So if the vector is negative 8i plus 15j, the magnitude is 17. It could be a square root, but this one worked out to be a perfect square. So you just take each one and put it over that. So remember that your unit vector, if your vector is like a, b, and your magnitude, I don't know, we'll say a1, a2, and your magnitude is this, then your unit vector is just a1 over your magnitude, comma, a2 over your magnitude. And again, you can write it in component form or in IJ form. And then this one asked you about the same direction and the opposite direction. The opposite direction, you just change the signs, right? You don't really need to worry about that for the test, but since it was there, we can talk about it. Tugboat problem, we actually did this problem, I think, in the notes, exactly with 30 degrees. We did one in the packet with a different degree, and we did one on the quiz. So you're seeing it again. So that means 100% you're going to have a tugboat question on your test. Label it, fill it out. Remember, the big idea is if you want it to go in a straight line, that this distance has to be the same as this distance, and then this is your force out here. And so just label it, fill out what you know, and solve for what's left. And so it's always like a two-part problem. So on this one, since I'm looking for the angle, step 1 is I solve for this vertical distance, and I got 1600. And then step 2, I know that this now is also 1600, so I can solve for this, use my calculator, and round to what it says to round to. Okay? This one says use trig forms to find multiplying and dividing. This is also going to be on the no calculator part, like the part from the quiz where you multiply, divide, and use de Moivre's theorem. The tricky part about 57, unlike the quiz, is that you have to put it in trig form first. So step 1 is find r and find theta, which is good practice. So on this one, negative 1, 1 is over here in quadrant 2. I solved for r and I got the square root of 2. And in quadrant 2, what angle would have a tangent of negative 1, right? You could write that if you want. Tangent of theta equals negative 1 has to be 3 pi 4. So that's where I got this. 1 plus I also has the square root of 2 as the r, and it's the same thing except for it's in quadrant 1, so it has a tangent of positive 1. So that's how I knew it was pi fourths. It doesn't say whether to use degrees or radians, but I just did radians on this, I guess. So when I multiply the r's and I add the thetas. And so I got 2 kiss pi. And on the other one, I multiply the r's. No, I divide the r's, which I got 1. And I subtract the thetas, and I got pi halves. Okay? 31 or 41, I need to finish a little bit here. It says express in trig form, and this one says 0 to 2 pi. It'll say 0 to 2 pi or 0 to 360. So step 1 on this is I found r to be the square root of 10. And then again, I'm going to think about where this is. So negative 3, 1 would be over here. So that makes this the square root of 10, this negative 3, this positive 1. And I'm looking for theta. So again, you could do sine, cosine, or tangent. If you do tangent on this one, I just want to remind you what your calculator does. If I did tangent on this, tangent would be 1 over negative 3. Let me grab a calculator. In radian mode, because it says in radians, I would do inverse tangent of negative 1/3. Oh, crap, I dropped it. And my calculator says negative 0.322. But that is not in quadrant 2, right? That's down here. So you have to think about how to get that other angle. And I think I would just add pi to that, wouldn't I? To get 2.82. Because I could just take pi minus that angle or add pi to get over there. So 2.82 is my angle. So I would say that this would be the square root of 10 kiss 2.82. If it was in degrees, I would do degrees. If it said exact answer, that means it'd be from the unit circle, but this one's not from the unit circle. Okay, so that's also kind of like the quiz. This one was also like on the quiz, except for you have to put it in trig form first, so good practice with that. I promise on the test, the one about de Moivre's theorem will already be in trig form. But again, step 1 is I found r. So really nicely, r is just 2 in this. And so this one actually is from the unit circle, because if I graph this, it's at 5 pi thirds. But again, you could use your calculator. But de Moivre's theorem says I'm going to take r to the third, and I'm going to take the angle times 3, and 5 pi times 3 is 5 pi. Remember, if it's like the unit circle one, or like, sorry, the one on the quiz, you would subtract 2 pi from this. So in trig form, that would be pi plus I sine of pi. But if you work it out in a plus bi form, it's just negative 8. Okay? And then the last one's here, practicing law of sines, law of cosines. So this one said find the exact values, but I didn't do that because on the test, it's not going to make you find exact values. You could on this because 60 and 45 are special angles that we could use the unit circle for, but I didn't do that. I just did law of sines. And remember, what you should always have 3 things. So angles, make sure you put your degree sign on it, and then I call these little letters, lowercase letters, and it should be the right answer there. Again, I don't show much work with law of sines because I just write what I do and then I type it in my calculator to do that. Number 7, they give me angle B and side A and side C. So again, I can solve for side B already. So that's again just a law of cosines problem because I don't have enough to do law of sines. And so this right here is my first step. Remember, it's cosine. Remember, subtracting. And I got 10.14. And then I switch back and solve for the smallest angle next. And I got angle A using law of sines to be 24.3. And angle C to be 40.7. And then here's another one where they gave me 3 sides first. And so this is where you have options. You can either solve for the biggest angle first or the smallest angle first. It doesn't really matter. But I got this as my answer. Again, starting with law of sines. I don't think I gave you an example with 2 triangles, but I 100% know that there's one like that on your test. So please make sure you look over the ones in the packet and on the quiz that we took where there were 2 triangles. And then the last one I picked here was Heron's formula. Find the area of this problem here. And so I got, it looks like 10.93 as my area. So just make sure you look over that, okay? So tomorrow we'll do the no calculator part. The no calculator part says 20 minutes, okay? So you're not going to have the whole hour to do this. And it is vector stuff, like adding and subtracting, multiplying, unit vector, magnitude, just like what I gave you on the review. And also look over the stuff on the quiz where you had to do like multiply and divide and de Moivre's theorem. It will be without a calculator, but that means it's doable, okay? And then the calculator part, it's just going to be the beginning of the test, which is like law of sines, law of cosines, I believe. Maybe the area, I don't know. I'm going to try to pick just law of sines and law of cosines, but that only gives you 20 minutes to do that as well. So I want to make sure that it's doable to do that, okay? So make sure you look over that. Look over the 2 triangle one. Make sure you know how to do that. Thursday, everything is up for grabs, but I know the vector stuff and the multiplying and dividing and de Moivre's theorem is not on the calculator part. It's only on the no calculator part. Okay? Come see me if you have questions.